council chamber floated in the darkness of space, a massive structure built by 7 ancient civilizations. Inside the grand hall, representatives from dozens of species gathered to discuss matters of trade, territory, and peace. Ambassador Jiwan sat in the human section, her hands folded on the smooth table before her. She wore the standard Earth diplomatic uniform, dark blue with silver trim, and her face showed no emotion as she listened to the arguments around her. For 30 years, Earth had been part of this galactic community. 30 years of careful words, patient negotiations, and quiet acceptance of insults. The other species viewed humans as newcomers, weak, and technologically behind. They were polite enough in public, but Giwan heard the whispers. She knew what they called her people: soft, naive, harmless. The Voltrine representative stood at the center podium now. His name was Dexel, and his species looked like massive reptiles covered in dark scales. He spoke with a voice that rumbled through the chamber. He was addressing the council about territorial disputes, but everyone knew he was really talking about the human colonies. His empire had been attacking. 3 human settlements had been destroyed in the past 6 months. Mining outposts on distant asteroids filled with workers and their families. The Voltrine warships had appeared without warning, their weapons turning the small stations into clouds of debris and frozen bodies. Over 4,000 people dead. 4,000 humans who had been trying to build new lives among the stars. Giwan had filed formal complaints. After each attack, she had presented evidence, witness testimony from the few survivors, and sensor logs showing Voltrine military ships in the area. Each time the council had expressed concern and promised to investigate. Each time, nothing had been done. Vexal finished his speech and returned to his seat. He looked directly at Giwan as he passed, and she saw the contempt in his eyes. To him, humans were insects. Annoying, but ultimately insignificant. The council session ended, and Giwan returned to her shuttle. The small ship carried her away from the council station, back toward the human embassy ship that orbited nearby. She sat in the passenger cabin and closed her eyes. Her assistant, a young diplomat named Minjae, sat across from her. "They're not going to help us," Minjae said quietly. "The Voltrine are too powerful. The council won't risk offending them over a few human colonies." Guan opened her eyes. "Send a message to Earth. Tell General Minho that diplomatic options have been exhausted." Back on Earth, in the city of Seoul, the United Earth Defense Command headquarters rose like a steel mountain. Deep inside the building, General Minho stood in a secure briefing room with his senior staff. Holographic displays showed maps of human territory in space. With red marks indicating where the Voltrine had attacked, Colonel Hannah stood beside him, her uniform pressed and perfect. She had been Minho's second-in-command for 8 years, and she understood him better than most. She could see the anger in the way he held his shoulders, the tension in his jaw. "Show me the latest footage," Minho said. Hannah activated another display. Security camera footage appeared, taken from inside one of the destroyed mining stations. Workers ran through corridors as alarms screamed. Then the screen went white as the station's hull ruptured. When the image cleared, there was nothing but wreckage and the cold darkness of space. "They're hunting us," Hannah said. "This wasn't a military target. They attacked because they could, because they wanted to." Minho was silent for a long moment. Then he turned to his communications officer. "Connect me to President Soman." The president's face appeared on the screen. She was in her office in the capital, and even through the hologram, Minho could see how tired she looked. The weight of leadership was visible in every line of her face. "Oh, General," she said. "I assume you've seen the council's response? Or rather, their lack of response," asked Madam President. "I'm requesting permission to activate defensive protocols across all colonies. We need to be ready." Salman shook her head. "Not yet. I want to try one more time. One final warning, delivered in person by Ambassador Jiwan. If they ignore it, if the attacks continue, then we'll take the next step." "And what is the next step?" Minho asked, though he already knew the answer. "We stop pretending," Salman said simply. 2 days later, Giwan stood before the Galactic Council once more. This time, she had requested a special session. The chamber was full, every species representative present. They wanted to hear what the human would say. Some were curious, others amused. A few looked sympathetic, but said nothing. Giwan walked to the center podium. She placed her hands on the smooth surface and looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of each counselor in turn. Then she began to speak. For 30 years, Earth has been a member of this council. We have followed every rule, respected every treaty, and conducted ourselves with courtesy and patience. We came to the stars hoping to find friends, partners, and a place in this great community of civilizations. She paused, letting her words sink in. The Veltrine Empire has killed over 4,000 human citizens. They have destroyed our settlements without provocation or warning. We have asked for justice. We have asked for protection. We have asked for the council to uphold the very laws that bind us all together. Dexel laughed from his seat. What will you do, human? File another complaint? Write another strongly worded letter? Giwan ignored him. She kept her eyes on the council leader, an ancient being whose species had been traveling the stars for 10,000 years. His name was Keeper Velmuth, and he was the oldest member of the council. I am here to deliver Earth's final warning, Juan said. Her voice was calm, but there was something in her tone that made several counselors sit up straighter. If the attacks on human colonies continue, if one more of our people is killed by the Veltrine or any other species, then Earth will respond. With what? The Xol sneered. Your primitive weapons? Your tiny fleet. Giwan finally turned to look at him. Stop attacking our people, or we stop pretending to be courteous. The chamber went quiet. Most of the counselors looked confused by the statement. A few smiled, thinking it was empty theater. But Keeper Velmuth leaned forward in his seat, his ancient eyes studying Juan's face. Ambassador, he said slowly, that is an interesting choice of words. Stop pretending. What exactly have you been pretending? Juan turned back to him. That we are weak. That we are helpless. That we are victims. She closed her data pad and walked away from the podium. As she left the chamber, she could hear the counselors beginning to argue among themselves. Most dismissed her words as desperation. But Keeper Velmuth sat silently, his mind working through centuries of memories and knowledge. He had seen many species rise and fall. He had studied the histories of 1,000 civilizations, and something about the way the human ambassador had spoken reminded him of something from long ago. A warning from a species that no longer existed, carved into the ruins of their dead worlds. The warning had said, beware those who choose peace but remember war. The research facility was buried 3 kilometers beneath the Pacific Ocean. Its existence was known to fewer than 1,000 people across all of Earth. Dr. Han walked through the main corridor, his security badge glowing softly in the dim light. Armed guards stood at every intersection. Scanning systems checked his identity. Every 50 meters, he entered the central observation deck and looked out through the reinforced windows. Below him, in a chamber the size of a football stadium, rows of equipment hummed with power. Weapons systems. Defense platforms. Technology that humanity had spent 30 years hiding from the galaxy. They really have no idea, do they? Asked Dr. Sunmi, Hyen's research partner. She stood beside him, holding a data tablet that displayed readouts from the various systems. None at all, Hyun replied. They think we're barely capable of faster-than-light travel. They don't know that we've had it for 70 years. We just waited 30 years before revealing ourselves to the galaxy. The truth was simple, but carefully guarded. When humanity had first developed the technology to travel between stars, they had also looked back at their own history with fresh perspective. Earth's 20th and 21st centuries had been filled with wars, weapons of mass destruction, and technology designed for one purpose, killing other humans as efficiently as possible, nuclear weapons that could destroy entire cities, biological agents that could wipe out populations, chemical warfare, orbital bombardment. Humanity had invented thousands of ways to kill, and they had nearly destroyed themselves multiple times in the process. When they reached the stars, Earth's leaders made a choice. They would hide their true nature. They would join the galactic community as peaceful newcomers, technologically inferior and eager to learn. They would watch, study, and understand the other species. And if they were lucky, they would never need to reveal what they really were. Ian's tablet chimed with an incoming message. He read it quickly, then looked up at Sun Mei. It's happening. The Valtrine just attacked New Jeju colony. 2 million people there. Sun Mei's face went pale. Are they insane? That's a full civilian population center. They think we can't stop them, Ian said quietly. He typed commands into his tablet. I'm authorizing weapons release. Send the activation codes to all defense command stations. Across Earth's territories, hidden systems began to wake up. Colony ships that looked like simple cargo vessels opened concealed weapons bays. Mining stations revealed missile batteries built into their support structures. Even civilian transports carried military-grade shields and electronic warfare systems. Every human facility in space had been designed with a dual purpose. Peace was the hope, but war was always the contingency. Commander Youngji stood on the bridge of the Silent Promise. The ship was one of 12 in Earth's Special Warfare Division. And from the outside, it looked like a standard freight hauler. Blocky, slow, unremarkable. The kind of ship that other species would ignore as they passed by. But beneath the civilian exterior was something else entirely. The Silent Promise carried enough firepower to destroy a small fleet. Its engines could accelerate to speeds that would tear apart any other vessel. Its armor was composed of materials that hadn't been invented when humans joined the galactic community. Yonji looked at her crew. 30 men and women, all volunteers, all trained for a mission they had hoped would never come. They had spent years preparing for this moment, running simulations, studying alien military tactics, and waiting. All stations report ready, said Lieutenant Kwan from the tactical station. Cloaking system active, added Ensign Dury from engineering. We're invisible to their sensors, Yonji nodded. She opened a communication channel to the other 11 ships in her fleet. Their captains appeared on her screen, each one looking as calm and focused as she felt. This is Commander Yunji. We have our orders. The Valtrine Empire has crossed the line. We are authorized to use Protocol Nightfall. Rules of engagement are as follows. Destroy all military targets, disable all weapons platforms, eliminate all warships. Civilian casualties are not acceptable. We are not monsters, and we will not become what we're fighting against. Understood, Commander, came the replies from 11 captains.
One more thing,
Yunji said. The galaxy is about to see who we really are. Make sure they understand that we chose to be peaceful. We weren't forced into it by weakness. When this is over, I want them to fear our restraint more than our weapons. The fleet activated their faster-than-light drives and vanished into the darkness between stars at New Jeju colony. Chaos had erupted. Valtrine warships hung in orbit like dark predators. Their weapons hammered the surface, destroying buildings, infrastructure, and anything that moved. The colony's small defense force fought back desperately, but they were outmatched and outgunned. Governor Taijin coordinated the evacuation from an underground bunker. Millions of civilians were flooding into emergency shelters, while what remained of the colonial militia tried to buy them time. Reports flooded in from across the colony. Casualties in the thousands. Buildings on fire. The spaceport destroyed. How long until relief arrives? Taijin demanded. His military advisor, Commander Inho, checked his displays. Admiral Park's fleet is 6 hours away. We don't have 6 hours. And something changed. The Valtrine ships suddenly stopped firing. Their targeting systems went haywire, their sensors showing impossible readings. 12 human ships had appeared in orbit. Materializing out of nowhere, the Silent Promise and her sister ships dropped their cloaking at the same instant. Yunji stood on her bridge and opened a channel to the Valtrine fleet commander. This is Commander Yunji of the United Earth Defense Force. You are attacking human civilians. You have 10 seconds to cease fire and withdraw, or we will destroy you. The Valtrine commander's face appeared on screen. He was laughing. 12 ships against our entire battle group. You humans are even more foolish than I thought. 5 seconds, Yunji said calmly. We will crush you and then finish destroying your pathetic colony. Time's up, Yunji said. She closed the channel and looked at her weapons officer. Fire. The battle lasted 17 minutes. The Voltrine fleet, confident in their superior numbers and firepower, never stood a chance. Human weapon systems had been designed using lessons learned from centuries of warfare. Railguns accelerated projectiles to incredible speeds, punching through shields that had never been tested against such forces. Energy weapons burned at frequencies the Voltrine had never encountered. Missiles maneuvered with impossible precision, guided by targeting computers that predicted enemy movements before they happened. The Voltrine ships exploded one by one. Some tried to flee, but the human vessels were faster. Some tried to return fire, but their weapons couldn't penetrate human shields. In 17 minutes, a Voltrine battle group that had terrorized human colonies for months simply ceased to exist. Commander, Yunji watched the last enemy ship break apart in silence. Then she opened a channel to New Jeju. Governor Taijun. This is Commander Yunji. The threat has been neutralized. We're sending down medical teams and emergency supplies. On the surface, in the underground bunker, Taijin and his staff stared at their displays in shock. They had been prepared to die. Now they were saved by ships they didn't even know existed. Commander Taijin said slowly. What just happened? How did you destroy them so easily? Youngji's face on the screen was grave. We stopped pretending, Governor. And now the galaxy is going to learn what humanity really is. News of the Voltrine fleet's destruction spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. Every species with access to communication networks received the same shocking reports. The humans, those peaceful newcomers who had seemed so weak and cooperative, had annihilated an entire Voltrine battle group in minutes. In the Galactic Council chamber, emergency sessions were called. Representatives arrived in a state of confusion and growing fear. Vexal, the Voltrine counselor, stood at the center podium and roared his outrage to anyone who would listen. This is an act of war. The humans have revealed themselves as the monsters we always suspected they were. They must be punished. They must be destroyed before they threaten us all. But other counselors were looking at the tactical reports with growing unease. The human ships had appeared from nowhere, suggesting stealth technology far beyond anything the galaxy possessed. Their weapons had cut through Voltrine shields like they were made of paper. And most disturbing of all, the battle had lasted only 17 minutes against a force that should have been superior. Keeper. Belmuth sat in his seat and said nothing. He was reviewing data from his own species' intelligence networks. His people, the Archival Collective, had been studying other civilizations for thousands of years. They kept records of everything. And now he was searching through those records for something he had remembered from long ago. General Minho coordinated. Earth's military response from Sol. Reports came in from every human colony and station. The Voltrine Empire had military installations across 12 star systems. All of them were now targets. Phase 2 is ready to begin, Colonel Hanna reported. All strike teams are in position. Minho looked at the tactical display showing the Voltrine home system. Dozens of military satellites, 3 major shipyards, and a fleet of over 200 warships. In the past, such defenses would have been unbreakable. But humanity had spent 30 years planning for this exact scenario. Execute, Minho ordered. Across 12 star systems, human ships emerged from faster-than-light travel. Captain Yemen commanded one of the assault vessels, a ship called Sol's Hammer. His mission was simple. Destroy the primary Voltrine shipyard in their home system. The shipyard was enormous. Construction platform that could build 50 warships at once. It was protected by defensive satellites, shield generators, and a patrol fleet. The Voltrine believed it was impregnable. Yemen's ship approached at speeds that should have been impossible. The Voltrine sensors detected him too late. By the time their weapons fired, Sol's Hammer had already launched its attack. The weapons were called kinetic penetrators. They were simple in concept, pieces of dense metal accelerated to near-light speed. At those velocities, they didn't need explosives. The kinetic energy alone was enough to destroy anything they hit. The defensive satellites exploded one after another, torn apart by impacts that released more energy than nuclear weapons. The shield generators overloaded and failed. The shipyard itself buckled and broke, huge sections tearing away and tumbling into space. Jamin watched his displays as the target disappeared in a cloud of debris. Target destroyed. Moving to secondary objectives, similar reports came in from all 12 systems. Human ships struck with precision and overwhelming force. Valtrine military bases were reduced to rubble. Weapons platforms were disabled. Warships were destroyed before they could even raise their shields. And through it all, not a single civilian target was touched. Every human captain had strict orders. They were destroying the Valtrine military, not the Valtrine people. This wasn't genocide. This was a message. In 47 minutes. The Valtrine Empire's military simply ceased to exist, but the Valtrine weren't the only ones watching. Across the galaxy, other aggressive species had been considering whether to attack human colonies. They saw humans as easy targets, weak and defenseless. Now they learned the truth. The Krone were a warrior species known for their brutal raids on weaker civilizations. They had been planning to attack a human mining colony on the edge of known space. Their fleet of 50 warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel, expecting an easy victory. Instead, they found automated defense platforms waiting for them. The platforms had been hidden in asteroids disguised as mining equipment. They activated the moment the Kron fleet appeared. The Kron commander watched in horror, as his ships were picked apart by weapons fire coming from every direction. Missiles struck with impossible accuracy. Energy beams sliced through armor. In less than 5 minutes, 30 of his ships were destroyed. Shh! He screamed, "Jump away. Jump now." The surviving 20 ships fled back into faster-than-light travel, their crews traumatized by the encounter. They transmitted warnings to their homeworld. Stay away from human territory. The humans were not prey. They were predators pretending to be prey. Ambassador Jawan received an urgent message. While she was aboard the human embassy ship, the Galactic Council was demanding her immediate return for an emergency session. She read the message, then looked at her assistant Minjae. "They want answers," she said. "Are you going to give them any?" Minjae asked. Some Juan replied. "Enough to make them understand. Not enough to make them comfortable." The council chamber was in chaos when Jiwan arrived. Representatives shouted over each other, demanding explanations, making accusations, and proposing actions against Earth. She walked calmly to the human section and took her seat. Waiting for the noise to die down, Dexal pointed at her with a clawed hand. Your people, are monsters. Murderers. You destroyed our fleet without provocation." Giwan stood slowly. "Without provocation? You attacked New Jeju. 2 million civilians. You've been attacking our colonies for months. We gave you warnings. We asked for help from this council. You ignored us. You could have filed more complaints." Another counselor shouted, "You could have pursued diplomatic solutions." "We did," Quan said calmly. "For 30 years, we pursued diplomatic solutions. We followed every rule, respected every treaty, and accepted every insult with patience. And what did it get us? 4,000 dead in the first attacks. Thousands more at New Jeju. How many of our people were supposed to die before we were allowed to defend ourselves?" The chamber went quiet. Several counselors looked uncomfortable. Keeper Velmuth spoke for the first time. "Ambassador Jiwan, I believe I understand now. Your warning was quite literal. You said you would stop pretending to be courteous. But there was another pretense, wasn't there? You have been hiding your true capabilities since the day you joined this council." Giwan met his ancient gaze. "Yes. Why?" Velmuth asked. "Why hide such power?" "Because we hoped we would never need it," Juan replied. "We studied your civilizations before revealing ourselves. We learned that most species evolved in relatively peaceful conditions. You have wars, but they are limited, polite, controlled. You don't understand what real warfare looks like." She activated a holographic display above her seat. Images appeared, historical records from Earth's past, cities destroyed by atomic weapons, populations wiped out by biological agents. entire regions poisoned by chemical warfare. "This is what humans did to each other," Juan said quietly. "Before we reached the stars, we nearly destroyed ourselves a dozen times. We created weapons so terrible that using them would have ended all life on our planet. We fought wars that killed millions. We perfected the art of killing each other." The counselors stared at the images in horror. "And then we stopped," Juan continued. "We looked at what we had become and made a choice. We would be better. We would find another way. When we developed faster than light travel, we could have come to the galaxy as conquerors. Instead, we chose to come as friends." "But you were lying," Vexal said. "Pretending to be weak?" "No," Guan replied. "We were choosing to be peaceful. There's a difference. Weakness is having no choice. Peace is making a choice. We chose peace. You forced us to choose war." She closed the display and looked around the chamber. "We are what, 3 world wars, 2 nuclear near extinctions, and 5,000 years of constant warfare created. Every human ship, every colony, every station was built with weapons hidden inside, because we know how quickly peace can end. We joined your council hoping we would never have to show you this side of ourselves. You forced our hand." The Galactic Council chamber remained silent after Juan's speech. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Then slowly, the chamber began to divide. Some species looked at the humans with new respect, even fear. Others looked with growing anger and suspicion. A representative from the Kresh Federation stood. His species looked like tall, thin creatures covered in gray skin. They were known for their military strength and their pride. "The humans have revealed themselves as a threat to all of us. What's to stop them from conquering us now? What's to stop them from becoming the very monsters they claim to have left behind?" Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Several other counselors nodded. "I propose we form a coalition," the Kresh continued. "A united fleet to contain the human threat before it's too late. If they can destroy the Valtrine so easily, what's to stop them from destroying any of us?" Within hours, the proposal gained support. The Kresh Federation, the Vorn hegemony, and 8 other species began mobilizing their fleets. Messages were sent across the galaxy. "Join us," they said. "Help us contain humanity before they enslave us all." President Soman received the intelligence reports in her office on Earth. She read them carefully, then looked up at the screen where General Minho's face appeared. "They're gathering a fleet," she said. "Over 3,000 ships, the largest military force in galactic history, and it's all aimed at us." "We expected this," Minho replied. "Fear makes people do stupid things. They're terrified of us now, so they're lashing out." "Can we stop them?" Salman asked. "Yes," Minho said simply. "But it will require us to show them even more of what we're capable of. And once we do that, there's no going back. The galaxy will never see us the same way again." She had become president hoping to guide humanity toward a peaceful future among the stars. Instead, she was leading them into a war that could reshape galactic civilization forever. "Do what you have to do," she said finally. "But remember, we're not trying to conquer anyone. We're trying to survive. Make sure the galaxy understands that." On Earth, protests erupted in major cities. Activist leader Bora stood before thousands of people in the streets of Seoul, her voice amplified by speakers. "We're becoming the very thing we fought so hard to leave behind. We're using violence and fear to solve our problems. This isn't who we are." The crowd cheered in agreement. Signs waved demanding peace, calling for humanity to return to diplomatic solutions. But then, across every screen in the city, footage began to play. Security cameras from New Jeju Colony, showing the Voltrine attack. Families running for their lives. Children crying in terror. Buildings exploding. Bodies in the streets. The crowd went quiet. Bora watched the footage with tears streaming down her face. A survivor from New Jeju, a woman named Yuna, took the microphone. Her arm was in a sling, and burn scars covered half her face. "I was there," she said quietly. "I watched my neighbors die. I heard children screaming. The Valtrine didn't care that we were civilians. They didn't care that we had done nothing to them. They attacked us because they could, because they thought we were weak. She looked at Bora. I understand your desire for peace. I share it. But peace only works when both sides want it. The Valtrine didn't want peace. They wanted us dead. And if Commander Yunji hadn't arrived with those ships, if our military hadn't been ready, we would all be corpses floating in space right now. The protests continued, but the energy had changed. People were no longer certain. The simple desire for peace had run into the complicated reality of survival. Commander, Yunji stood on the bridge of the Silent Promise, reviewing intelligence reports about the Coalition fleet. 3,000 ships, all converging on human space. Her own force consisted of 12 vessels. On paper, it was impossible. They were outnumbered 250 to 1. But Yunji had studied military history her entire life. She knew that numbers weren't everything. Strategy, technology, and determination mattered more. And humanity had all three in abundance. Dr. Heian arrived on her ship carrying a secure case. He was escorted by armed guards, and his face was grim. Commander, he said, I've brought you something. It's a weapon system we've never deployed before. We call it the Cascade Protocol. Yunji looked at the case. What does it do? It's a network integration system. Every human, ship, station, colony, and outpost across 300 star systems can be linked together as a single weapons platform. Targeting data is shared instantly. Defensive systems coordinate automatically. In essence, the entire human presence in space becomes one massive defense network. In the galaxy, we'll see all of it, Yangji said. No more hiding. No more pretending. No more pretending, Heen agreed. Meanwhile, Keeper Velmuth made a journey he had not made in centuries. He left the council station alone, in a small ship, and traveled to a dead system at the edge of known space. There, orbiting a burned-out star, were the ruins of an ancient civilization. His species. The Archival Collective had discovered these ruins thousands of years ago. They had studied them, trying to understand what had happened. The civilization that built these cities had been incredibly advanced. Possibly more advanced than any species alive today, but something had destroyed them. Their worlds were dead. Their cities were ruins. All that remained were warnings carved into stone monuments. Velmuth landed his ship on one of the dead worlds and walked through the ruins. He found the monument he was looking for, a massive stone pillar covered in ancient writing. His translation systems worked slowly, decoding a language that had been dead for millennia. The message was simple. We could not stop fighting.
Avon.
When there was nothing left to fight for. We were warriors who forgot how to be anything else. Let our fate be a warning to those who come after. Velmuth stood before the monument for a long time, thinking about the humans. They were warriors, yes, but they had learned to stop fighting themselves. They had chosen peace when they could have chosen conquest. But now the galaxy was forcing them back into war. He returned to his ship and sent a message to Ambassador Juan. I need to speak with you. Privately. Urgently. They met on a neutral station. In a private room where they could speak without being monitored. Velmuth showed Guan the images from the dead world, the monuments and their warnings. There was another species like yours, he said. Long ago, warriors who nearly destroyed themselves and then tried to change, but they couldn't. The galaxy around them kept pushing them, kept forcing them to fight, until they had nothing left but war. And in the end, they destroyed themselves completely. Guan looked at the images with sadness. You're afraid we'll follow the same path. I'm afraid the galaxy will push you down that path, Velmuth replied. The Coalition fleet is gathering. They mean to force you to submit or destroy you trying. And if you defeat them, others will rise to challenge you. Again and again, until there's nothing left but endless war. What would you have us do? Guan asked. Surrender. Let them dictate terms to us. Allow them to dismantle our defenses and leave us vulnerable to the next species that decides we're easy targets. No, Velmuth said. But I think you need to show them something more than just your weapons. You need to show them why you chose peace in the first place. You need to show them that your greatest strength isn't your ability to destroy, but your ability to choose not to. Juan considered his words carefully. Then she smiled slightly. I think I know what we need to do. But it's going to require perfect timing and a great deal of trust. Trust in what? Velmuth asked. Trust that when we show the galaxy what we're really capable of, they'll understand the choice we're making by not using it. The Coalition fleet arrived at the edge of human space like a storm. 3,000 warships from 12 different species, all united by fear and determination. They moved in formation, their weapons charged, their shields at maximum power. This was the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. Fleet. Commander Croth, of the Kresh Federation, stood on the bridge of his flagship. He was tall and proud, a veteran of countless battles. He had fought pirates, rebels, and territorial disputes, but he had never faced anything like this. Humans were an unknown quantity now, and that made him cautious despite his numerical advantage. Send the message, he ordered. A transmission went out across all frequencies, aimed at Earth and every human colony. Croth's face appeared on screens across human space. Attention, humans of Earth. You have 48 hours to comply with the following terms. You will surrender all military technology to the Galactic Council. You will submit to monitoring and oversight. You will reduce your fleet to defensive vessels only, with specifications approved by the Coalition. If you refuse, we will be forced to take action against you. The message ended. Croth sat back in his chair and waited for the human response. On Earth. In the Defense Command headquarters, General Minho watched the message with Colonel Hanna and the rest of the senior staff. When it ended, he looked around the room. Opinions? He asked. They're bluffing, said one admiral. 3,000 ships sounds impressive, but they're from 12 different species. Different command structures, different tactics, different languages. They'll have coordination problems. They're not bluffing, Hanna said quietly. They're terrified, and terrified people do desperate things. If we don't respond carefully, this could turn into a war that kills billions. Minho nodded. I agree. Which is why we're going to do exactly what Ambassador Juan suggested. We're going to show them everything, and then show them why they should be grateful we're on their side. He activated the Cascade Protocol. Across 300 star systems, human installations began to change. Cargo ships that had appeared civilian suddenly revealed weapon systems. Mining stations activated defensive platforms. Colony habitats powered up military-grade shields. Even small outposts on distant asteroids lit up with targeting sensors and missile batteries. The Coalition fleet's sensors went crazy. Thousands of weapon signatures appeared simultaneously, all across human territory. Ships that had been invisible suddenly became visible. Defense networks that hadn't existed a moment ago were now active and targeting the Coalition fleet. Commander Croth stared at his tactical display in disbelief. That's impossible. Where did all of this come from? His sensor officer's voice shook as he replied, Sir, they were hiding it. All of it. Every human installation had concealed weapons. We're surrounded by active targeting systems. Thousands of them. But the weapons didn't fire. The humans had activated everything, shown everything, but they weren't attacking. It was a demonstration, not an assault. Then a new message came through. General Minho's face appeared on Croth's screen. Commander Croth, you're looking at humanity's true defensive capacity. Every ship, station, and colony you see could destroy your fleet 10 times over. But we're not going to attack you. Instead, we're going to show you something else. The screen changed to show a new location. An uninhabited star system empty except for asteroids and gas giants. Captain Yemen's ship, Soul's Hammer, appeared in the center of the system. This is one of our vessels, Minho's voice continued. Watch carefully. A Kresh dreadnought, one that had been shadowing the main fleet, entered the system. It was one of the most powerful warships in the galaxy. Heavily armored and equipped with enough firepower to destroy a small planet, Soul's Hammer fired a single weapon. It wasn't a missile or an energy beam. The weapon was invisible to standard sensors, but its effect was immediate and terrifying. The space around the dreadnought began to distort. Gravity itself twisted and compressed. The massive warship crumpled like paper. Metal groaned and snapped as artificial forces crushed the vessel from all sides. In seconds, the dreadnought had been compressed into a sphere barely 100 meters across. Then the weapon reversed, and the sphere exploded outward. Scattering debris harmlessly into space, the entire demonstration had taken less than a minute. On Croth's flagship, every officer stood in stunned silence. They had just watched one of their most powerful ships destroyed with contemptuous ease by a weapon. They didn't even understand. Minho's voice continued. That weapon manipulates gravity itself. We have hundreds of them. We have other weapons that can ignite atmospheres, destabilize stars, or turn entire planets into radioactive wastelands. We invented these weapons centuries ago when we were killing each other, and then we chose to stop using them. Screen changed again, showing footage from Earth's history. Wars, destruction, nuclear explosions, cities in ruins. This is what we did to ourselves, Minho said. Before we reached the stars, we nearly destroyed our own world multiple times. We created weapons so terrible that using them would have ended all life on Earth. And eventually, looked at what we had become and made a choice. We would be better. When we joined the galactic community 30 years ago, we could have conquered half the galaxy before anyone realized what was happening. But we chose peace instead. We hid our weapons and pretended to be weak because we hoped we would never need to use them. We wanted to be your friends, not your conquerors. Minho's face reappeared on screen and his expression was serious but not angry. You came here with 3,000 ships to threaten us, to force us to submit. But you need to understand something. We're not asking for your permission to exist. We're not asking for your approval. We're offering you a choice. You can try to fight us, and we will defend ourselves. We will win. Because we've spent thousands of years perfecting the art of warfare while you were exploring the stars in peace. Or you can accept that humanity deserves the same respect and dignity that every other species in the galaxy enjoys. The transmission ended. Commander Croth sat in his command chair, his mind racing. Around him, his officers waited for orders. The Coalition fleet's communication channels were flooding with messages from other ships, other species. Some wanted to attack, others wanted to flee, and still others wanted to negotiate. Finally, Croth spoke. Send a message to the Coalition leaders. Request immediate negotiations with human representatives. Tell them we're ready to discuss terms. 2 weeks later, the Galactic Council chamber was filled once again. But this time, the atmosphere was completely different. Representatives sat quietly, listening as President Soman addressed them from Earth via holographic projection. We propose a new treaty, she said. One that recognizes the right of all species to defend themselves without interference. One that holds attackers accountable for their actions. One that acknowledges that peace is a choice, not a condition enforced by the strong upon the weak. The treaty that emerged was called the Soul Accords. It fundamentally restructured how galactic civilization operated. Species that attacked others without provocation would face unified action from the rest of the galaxy. Defensive capabilities would no longer be seen as threatening, and humanity would share some of their defensive technology with other species. Helping to create a galaxy where aggression was too costly to consider, the Valtrine Empire agreed to pay reparations for the attacks on human colonies. Their leadership faced war crimes tribunals. The species themselves weren't punished, but their government was held accountable. Commander Yunji stood on New Jeju Colony, watching reconstruction efforts. Buildings were being rebuilt. Families were returning to their homes. The memorial to those who had died in the attack stood in the center of the main plaza, a reminder of the cost of the galaxy's lessons. Colonel Hannah joined her. Do you think it will last? This peace? For a while, Yunji replied. Long enough for the current generation to remember what happened here. Long enough for them to teach their children that starting wars with humanity is a terrible idea. After that, who knows? So we keep the weapons ready, always Yunji said. Peace only works when people remember why war is terrible. We have to be the ones who remember. Ambassador Juan and Keeper Velmuth stood before the monument to the extinct warrior species. They had traveled here together after the treaty signing, wanting to pay respects to a civilization that had failed where humanity hoped to succeed. "Do you think we'll end up like them?" Juan asked. Velmuth was quiet for a long moment. "I don't know. But I think you have something they didn't. You chose to stop fighting each other before it was too late. You learned to direct your strength outward only when necessary, and even then with restraint. That extinct species, according to our records, never learned that lesson. They fought until there was nothing left." "It came close," Juan admitted. "Many times. But you stepped back from the edge," Velmuth said. "That's the difference. And now you've taught the galaxy an important lesson. The most dangerous species isn't the one with the biggest weapons. It's the one with the biggest weapons who chooses not to use them until absolutely necessary." They stood in silence for a while longer, then turned and walked back to their ships.